These are the 5 dumbest delistings in the history of AFL list management. Joining me is a man, you might not recognise him. You might be going, who's this guy? That's not Rocket Eat. Who is this? This is a man who has done more for AFL arguments in pubs than anyone else. His name is Dave Slutskin, and he is the creator of draftguru.com.au, which is a database of every draft in the history of forever, every trade, every... What else is there?
Delisting, all the games they played, all the goals they kicked, all that sort of crap.
It's up there with AFL tables, so if you want cold, hard stats to back up your argument... Anyway, delistings. I mean, this time of year, a lot of people are getting cut from lists, and sometimes it's absolutely heart-wrenching. You know, you've got your favourites that you get there, but football is a cold, hard business, and sometimes they get it so wrong. So, I mean, we could do the top 5 good delistings and then, you know, they've cut a player and they end up in prison. That's not fun. I want the dumbest delistings where they have been cut and they go on and achieve greatness at another club. So let's get into it. Number 5.
Number 5 might be Bachar Houli.
Oh, yeah. No, that's he's number 5.
Maybe he's not number 5. No, I reckon he's number 5.
Okay, good. I need you to know
there were
the numbers.
reasons. There were reasons that Essendon delisted him at the time, is my understanding. You know, it just wasn't working, wasn't fitting into the club. Didn't, you know, they weren't happy, didn't fit into the playing group, whatever. Like, there seemed to be reasons there.
Okay.
He went on to play a whole lot of games, 200-odd games at Richmond, and win 3 flags, and he was All-Australian. So, it's probably not ideal.
No, I think Bachar Houli was a really great player, and then he proved it at Richmond. I remember I was working at Channel 7. I saw him the day after the 2017 Grand Final, and I said to him, "What's it like being the only Richmond fan on earth right now who's not hungover?" And he did correct me. He goes, wait. Waleed's not hungover. Yes, good point. Okay.
Very fair.
But yeah, great player. But you don't know the reasons he was delisted?
I mean... I know what Big Footy says were the reasons that he was delisted. Does that really count?
No, it totally doesn't. All right.
I'm a man about stats, Danny. I don't take anonymous scuttlebutt from the internet.
That's what this listicle's for. Yeah. Number 4.
Number 4 is, this is a Saints one. I'm
That's
a Saints
all good.
fan. Clearly a long-suffering Saints fan, as you said, Danny. Daryl Wakeland.
Okay, so...
It wasn't actually one that we delisted.
Yeah.
Adelaide delisted Daryl Wakeland originally. Gave him a couple of years. He'd come from Port in the Sandfall. I think he won a flag at Port potentially.
I think he did.
The year that he was on Adelaide's list. And then
you mean Port SANFL? He won the flag there.
In the Sandfall.
Because he definitely won one at AFL.
He's going to go on to win one. Don't give away the ending. No, it's not a spoiler. It was 20 years ago. I don't think that counts as a spoiler anymore. He had a great career for the Saints. We always loved him and his brother Shane, who were very fun to watch. You couldn't necessarily tell them apart on field, wearing number 12, number 15, both pharmacists. He was a really solid player, and then we traded him across to Port and he won a flag, joining the grand tradition of Saints players who've left the club and won a flag elsewhere.
Could you do a team of the century ex-Saints players who've won flags?
It'd be an amazing team because we've lost so many players. I mean, there's more Saints players who've left the Saints and won flags
than there are players who've won flags.
Have actually won flags at the Saints.
But to also win a flag at Port when you were delisted by the Crows, that must be extra sweet.
I assume so, especially because it was from Port in the Sandfall.
Yeah.
Originally, he was a Magpie born and bred. So I would assume, I don't know Daryl personally, but I'm going to put words in his mouth now. He would have been pretty happy rubbing Adelaide's nose in it.
Yes.
Winning the flag, going back to Port and winning the flag at Port in the end.
When Choco was saying, and Scott, you were wrong, he was going, and Crows, you were wrong.
And Crows, you were wrong. And we actually did a right out of deal. Like when we traded him, we got Aaron Hamill back in. This
is why Draft Guru is great. Yeah, Aaron Hamill was a brilliant player.
We were having fun then. It was when Blighty came to the club very briefly. But they brought in some good players, Aaron Hamill, Fraser Gehrig, a bunch of others. Enough about the old Saints, because I could talk about that all day.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But Daryl Wakeland, number 4.
Number 4. Number 3.
Number 3 is a guy called Martin Pike.
4-time premiership player.
4 flags.
Yeah.
Not many players win 4 flags.
No.
He was a pretty solid footballer in his day.
Who delisted him?
He was potentially delisted by both. No, he was delisted by Fitzroy. So he was at Melbourne for a couple of years.
Okay.
When he was 20 and 21. And then he kind of ended up across at Fitzroy. He was traded for Marcus Seacamp, of all people.
Okay, I remember that name.
And then when Fitzroy dissolved at the end of 96, he wasn't taken up by Brisbane.
Oh, right. So, because they took Brisbane, part of the merger, they got like
they took Brad Boyd and a few
Chris Johnson. Yeah.
And my understanding is that the reason they didn't take him is because he was a bit of a loose cannon at the time.
Yes.
And potentially throughout his career, he's probably a bit of a loose cannon off field and potentially on field as well. So what happened is that he got picked up by North the year after Fitzroy went. He was at North for 4 years, including winning a flag at North.
In 99.
Not all of us remember that. I certainly didn't until I did my research the other day. And he played in another grand final then in 98, which was the second one that Adelaide won.
Yes.
But then North dumped him. And then
they
got
delisted
picked up
him
by
as
Brisbane.
well.
So he actually got delisted twice.
What? Hang on. Double the amount of premierships than delistings.
Yeah.
And he's number 3.
And he's number 3. He went on. As soon as Brisbane picked him up, he played in the flag that year, flag the next year, flag the year after, and grand final the year after that. So they managed to get something out of him, and potentially it's having Lethal and having Vossi as the on-field leader, and maybe they, obviously a relatively common story in AFL footy, that you kind of beat the guy into shape when you put them in the right environment. So, and he was getting a bit older and maybe a bit more mature. So Martin Pike, very solid footballer, but also he won a lot of flags, despite, as you said, being delisted twice.
I can't believe he's number 3. All right, I'm really excited to see who's going to win this list. Second dumbest delisting in the history of AFL list management, Dave Slutskin from draftguru.com.au.
Honestly, I'm rethinking this one because it's Craig Bolton, who won a flag for Sydney.
Yes.
I'm only rethinking it because we just talked about Martin Pike. Mm-hmm. During that era, Brisbane were going all right. Yeah. I think it's fair to say they were going okay. For 3 years there.
You mean the greatest team that as I've seen in my life?
I think it's fair to say they were going okay. Yeah. And they delisted Craig Bolton in 2002, in the middle of the dynasty.
Okay.
He probably couldn't really get a game ahead of Justin Lepich and all of those guys. Yeah. They had a bunch of tools who were doing good. Mm-hmm. Craig Bolton they grabbed from New South Wales originally, spent a few years on the list. What did he play? 29 games in 4 years. Okay. So he didn't really get on the pitch that much. And that's probably understandable given the quality they had. So they delisted him and Sydney gave him a shot. He turned out to be a pretty solid player for Sydney. He was All-Australian a couple of times. He won a flag with them in 2005. He was a regular.
Yeah. He was the sort of player that Brisbane needed in the Reconstruction era.
In the Reconstruction,
because they really, of course you're going to fall off a cliff after making 4 grand finals in a row.
Unless you're Geelong.
Unless you're Geelong, or the Swans. But they really were in the doldrums for way longer than they should have been. Brisbane, and that's a dumb decision.
Because Craig Bolton retires in 2011. He's only 30 still, so he could have probably got another couple of years if they'd needed him. He could have been the guy to build the team around from that point on. But maybe, there's probably reasons they delisted him. Who knows? Maybe he said, I'm sick of living in Brisbane. It's too warm up here. I need to go down to Sydney.
So the traffic's too flowing.
The beaches are too nice.
There's a nightlife. I don't like this. Send me to Sydney.
And he went to Sydney. But Craig Bolton, he's your man.
And the worst delisting in the history of AFL list management, according to Dave Slutskin from draftguru.com.au. Who is it?
See, I love this one because he is now a list manager himself.
Oh!
He's making these decisions.
Really?
On behalf of his club. He's delisting players himself. I also love this one because he was delisted by a club, went elsewhere, became a very, very good player, and then went back to the club that originally delisted him and became a legend there. His name's Peter Bell.
Oh, from Freo.
From Freo, little guy who was too slow and too small for AFL footy when Jared Neesham delisted him at the end of 95.
Delisted from Freo?
Yeah, he was on their foundation list.
Hang on, okay.
He didn't get a game, or did he get a game? He played 2 games that year, but Neesham didn't like him, so he delisted him. He was given a chance by a team called North Melbourne, went there, won a flag the first year. Of course. Won another flag a few years later. I mean, admittedly, Wayne Carey did a fair bit of the heavy lifting in there, but Peter Bell was a very big contributor. He was All-Australian in 99 when they won that second flag. He won their best and fairest, and then he said, I want to go home. And the famous trade was Peter Bell for Jess Sinclair. Admittedly, Freo also threw in pick 6, pick 8, and pick 37. So it wasn't just Peter Bell for Jess Sinclair.
And who did they get in those picks? I mean, you're able to find that on draftguru.com.au.
That's a very good question.
But look how quick this is. Seriously, this is a great example of this website.
Who got picked up by those picks were Dylan Smith, who was a terrible first-round pick for North. Daniel Motlop, who was
he was great.
Decent player.
Yeah, very good player.
They didn't necessarily get the best out of him. And Guy Richards, because they on-traded this pick to Collingwood, and Guy Richards took the third one. And that's what we see. We might talk about trades at some point, because you see with trades, often everyone loses.
Oh.
That's the interesting thing about
trades. All right, that's a sizzle for another video.
We'll talk about that later. But Peter Bell, he then went on to play, what did he play? 163 games for Freo.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of three best and fairest. He was all-Australian for them. He was a captain. He was the heart and soul of that club, and he continues to be because he's a list manager.
Yeah.
Now, and he's making these things happen himself.
And that is Dave's list, the draftguru.com.au's list of the worst delistings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. What do you think is the dumbest delisting? And, like, subscribe if you've enjoyed this. Tell your friends if there's a player. If you know any of these players, please send it to them. It'd be great for them to be vindicated as the survivors of a terrible decision. Check out draftguru.com.au. It is genuinely one of the best databases on AFL history going around. And there's a thing now. I got monetized on this channel. You can become a member and you get like gifts and stuff, and I'll release videos early to that. I don't know.
Just here.
Yeah, probably. Here. Oh no, you might be watching on your phone. It's up there. I don't know. But thanks for watching.